Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. And it looks like I was correct. Ada will be joining us shortly. She just had some traffic issues. This happens in London, apparently. I think that's where she is in London. So if anybody is watching, well, it looks like nobody's. I'll speak for the replay. When she gets here, you will be hearing from my friend Ada. Ada is from Different Voice X. And I'll put up her, there it is. She has a YouTube channel as well. She is on Instagram. That's how we met. And she is a wonderful person and also a unique voice in the conversation, the supposedly courageous conversation about race. Now, she's in the UK. I'm in the United States. And so we bring different perspectives to this discussion. And yet you'll hear some similarities, which is interesting as well. So I hope we can get people thinking. When we talk, we just kind of riff on these subjects and go back and forth about our different perspectives, what's going on there, what's going on here. She asks me questions, I ask her questions. This is a live stream, so you can ask questions as well. So please do. If you have something to ask her about her experience, something to ask me about how things are in the United States, if you're tuning in from the UK, throw it up there. We would like this to actually be a conversation with more than just us. Maybe someday we'll end up in what's it called? I'm a member now, but I haven't done Clubhouse. Yes, I'm in Clubhouse. I have yet to be brave enough to have a conversation in there. I'm a little intimidated by it. So we start here and hopefully we will end up there. Good morning. Good morning to Sacramento. I'm sorry that you're in Sacramento. No, I'm kidding. Isn't Sacramento like one of the sane places in California? Like somewhat sane up north, that area? I'm not sure. That was the rumor anyway. So while we wait, I did want to refer you to a couple of things. I made a video last night, later than I ought to have been awake, about how critical race theory impacts people mentally in terms of their mental health. I've brought this up a few times on this channel, but I think it can't be repeated often enough. It can't be overstated. Hello, Barbu. I'm so excited. Australia is in the house. You. So as far as mental health goes, I really think this is the biggest problem with so-called critical race theory, because when your perception of reality is changed, when you start having a different internal monologue, different conversation with yourself about what you see, what you experience in the outside world, what your five senses are picking up, and you stop perceiving things as they are consistently, like better than 50% of the time, if not 90% of the time, you have entered into an alternate reality, a pseudo reality. She's here, yes. And in that pseudo reality, in order to maintain any sense of equilibrium and not completely lose your mind, you have to create pseudo morality and pseudo ethics to go with it. It's very dangerous. So check out that video. All right, Ada is here. Yay. You are
Hello.
here. You are here.
How
Hello.
are you?
Oh, good. So we have
Am I clear?
Can you hear me? Yeah? Can you hear me? Hello?
I can. It's just breaking up a tiny bit, but I can hear you. Can you hear me perfectly?
I can hear you. Yes, it's a little quiet. So if you have, you could talk into the mic. But we have.
Is it quiet?
It's a little quiet, but it could be me. I'll turn it up on my end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So how are you?
I'm very, very good. The visual is a bit clearer, isn't it? I know we had that blue line issue with my laptop yesterday, but I just wanted to be seen clearly and I wanted to see you clearly as well.
Okay, fantastic. So awesome. So we have Australia represented here and we have California. And hopefully soon we'll get some people from the UK as well. But
I hope so.
Hope so.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, they can hear us in Australia. That's good.
Hi,
That's
Australia.
So I was just mentioning before he came on the issue of
Mm-hmm.
mental health and critical race theory. And before I
Mm-hmm.
even go back to that, I was talking to a friend of mine on LinkedIn today briefly, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a linguist. He teaches linguistics in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
He's a professor, and he's written this
Yeah.
wonderful book, which I'm going to read a chapter of today. It's called The Babylon Cipher. It's all about language.
Nice.
And apparently,
Okay.
chapter 8 deals with some things that will be very important for us to consider. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he said it's not a theory, that critical race theory is not even a theory, it's a
Mm-hmm.
model. And I didn't know the
Okay.
difference. I'm not, an academic. Apparently, in order for something to be a theory, you have to have mounds of evidence for it to become a theory. If we're looking at something scientifically, and one would hope that we teach things in schools and apply things in government policy that are grounded in, that are evidence based, right? We would hope that we're not just teaching belief systems and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
implementing policy and spending people's money based on belief systems. But what he said was, and I'm going to read, he said that a model is like a rough sketch that anyone can make, a device for testing a hypothesis. When a model gives stable results over a number of tests, it can become a hypothesis. So critical race theory is not even a hypothesis because there's literally no evidence. It hasn't been measured in a stable way to show, yep, we can tell you exactly how the racism happens, how it appears, how it directly
Mm-hmm.
causes this impact. You know how they're saying
Mm-hmm.
the outcome tells us it's racism, but there's a whole lot missing in between. Like, so that you go from the end and come back and formulate your conclusion. That's not logic, and that's not science. That's not anything. So he says this. So it's not even a theory, because in order for something to become a theory, you have to test it in a stable way. And when the body of evidence builds, it eventually becomes a theory. But even then, not all theories are foolproof. We have theories that sometimes we have to revise over time, right? New scientific data
Exactly.
tell us this isn't exactly correct. Our theories of how, the earth was formed have evolved. We've tweaked it here and there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
he says we're calling it a theory, which is giving them way too much credit and making it sound much too scientific. And no one in any official position where they're rushing to adopt this and spend billions of dollars to hire people to teach it and implement it and do trainings and workplaces, nobody's saying, "Can I see the evidence, please?" Just I'd love to read the research papers on how you establish that this outcome is evidence of racism. How does this prove that the racism is there?
Happened. Yeah.
And then can we have a
Mm-hmm.
stable definition of racism while we're at it? Racism isn't the outcome. Like, what is the actual definition of racism? And I'm sorry, could you back up a step? What is race? Because I think we're going to get stuck there, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think so? What do you think of
Mm-hmm.
that?
So the thing is nowadays in society, people don't care much anymore about evidence-based things. Or shall I say, they care only when it fits their own wokeness and their own narrative, right? So that I'm completely not surprised about. I mean, we are literally formulating policies and changes in society based on hypotheses. White privilege in itself came out of the mind of what's her name again? I always forget.
Oh, this the backpack lady?
The one who actually formulated,
Yeah,
or
I
who,
think this is back in the 80s where she wrote the
yes,
invisible knapsack, or yeah, the knapsack, unpacking
I
the invisible
I
knapsack.
think so. So,
Yeah, and
you
her name
know,
escapes me now.
it really does, so that is just so preposterous to me. And it's even ironic because one of the branches of critical race theory is about science and scientific facts, which apparently is a white thing, right? It's a white supremacist thing. So that in itself is just ludicrous, because then what you inadvertently say is that Black people, we are not able to, let's say, research or come to logical conclusions and use scientific methods. And so all these things that come up that is meant to battle or reduce race, something or the other, is actually what is causing more racism, in my own opinion.
Mhm.
So that's my basic, just quick summary about what I think about critical race theory, really.
It's well, and it's awfully convenient, isn't it? If we make science itself a bad thing, if it's sort of evidence in and of itself of white supremacy or whiteness or some concept like that, then
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to hold ourselves accountable to that standard. We can just ignore it. You're demanding evidence. Well, you're demanding that we adhere to this white supremacist standard. So, no, we don't need to do that. And that, to me, ought to be the first giant red flag to any person out there who would dare to call themselves, sane, never mind intelligent, rational, critical thinking human beings. So when
Mm-hmm.
we have politicians all the way up the food chain, okay, and professors and, important people who have power over other people's lives. Yes, Peggy McIntosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh,
That's who
great.
it
That
is.
was her. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does. I think
Yeah.
I forget it because I have a mental block. I don't want to give her any kind of coverage.
Right, right.
But I when I hear people supporting this or saying, "Oh yes, we need to do these things for equity or whatever," and I have two options. I have to think the person is either completely just venal. They're not even remotely interested in investigating at the surface level what it is they're proposing or supporting or taking our money to pay for, or they're incredibly stupid, like really hardcore, ignorant levels of stupid. So these are not great choices when you think about the people who have power over your life. Again, whether it's in politics or even in academia, imagine being a student. Just
Exactly.
it's hard to imagine.
Why are we giving them so much power in the first place? I mean, we spoke briefly yesterday. I watched. I'm not really. I don't really care about the political side of things
Right.
a lot. I care about what people say, and
Mhm.
when people are using sort of these hyperbolic, over exaggerated words, I just think, like what you've just said, are people actually nodding along and saying, wow, he's actually really correct? And I watched your president's, Joe Biden's speech
Not mine.
yesterday.
I
This is
mean,
why I always give that disclaimer. I don't want to talk about politics, but
right.
even before I go on, it's so sad. I overheard someone say that you can't navigate through life anymore without talking about politics. That is the biggest downfall of our generation. I feel sorry for this generation. I don't know about you, but I remember growing up and the top three things you couldn't talk about, I think it was politics, religion, and I think it was money, or like
And
how,
sex.
and sex.
And
That's the
now
one,
we're
actually.
doing nothing but talking about sex and politics
Yes.
and religion too,
And religion.
because like all the forbidden things and they were I wouldn't say forbidden, but I think they were discouraged. It was discouraged to have these conversations amongst people you didn't know very well or where you didn't
Yes.
know it was a welcome
Yes.
discussion
Right.
for good reason.
Right.
Because I think for two reasons. First, this is supposed to be your conscience speaking to it. Like, it's supposed to be a personal decision. You have a secret ballot for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
In democratic societies, you go into the voting booth, and no matter what you've said, even up until 5 seconds before you stepped in there, that's your private business. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you could totally change your mind and be lying about what you're doing.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and it's supposed to be for a reason, because if it's not, we right away get into the area of intimidation, and where it's not a free society. You're voting not based on your conscience and your evaluation of
Exactly.
the policy, based on intimidation and fear.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's where we are right now. Is I was just looking through my photos as an example. You ever go through your photos on your phone, cleaning them
Mm-hmm.
out, junk like that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
scrolling back just like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I get past a year and I'm into like a year and 2 months, a year and whatever. And it's almost like, even though I'm looking at pictures of myself and my family and even some of the memes I saved just to, reshare. And I'm like, it's a different world, even from then. And this stuff's been building for decades. So I'm not going to say, oh, it was all roses, but just the things that I felt comfortable sharing, or the things that I took pictures of, or the, places I knew we went and wanted to share. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I would hesitate now.
Mm-hmm.
There are many pictures in there that I would think, okay, I might not put this up. I might not share this. I might not share this thought. I might not share this meme. I might, now there are, when I say that, there are some that I've gotten more outspoken about, but I pick my battles now. I'm going to be very in your face and outspoken about certain things, but I'm careful that it actually matters. And I'm not just, making a joke, because it used to be, you could just like, hey, this is funny. Hey, look at this. Ah, ha, ha. And now I'm like,
yeah. And two things about that. The first thing is you need to speak about what you feel is important to you and what your perspectives. And why do I want to make that clear? For example, I talk about race and I talk about culture. That's me. Sometimes I might talk about politics. Sometimes I might talk about COVID. But me, Ada, different voice, is race and culture in the US, in the UK.
mm-hmm.
Now, some people have come to me and said, well, why don't you talk about this? Or why don't you talk about that? But I don't care about that. I don't even like to do I don't care is not the right word. It's not my passion, shall I say.
Yeah.
Many people have said, well, even I don't like to do the whole, oh, look what's going on in so-and-so place. There are other people who are passionate about, let's say, ending world hunger and, a lot of things. Nowadays, it's like everyone is feeling pressured to be caring about specific things. What? You don't care about Black Lives Matter? What? You don't care about dismantling police? It's not that you don't care. And that's why we have all these fake virtue signaling going on social media, because people are putting up a pretense. Oh, let me speak about this, or let me make a comment about this so that I don't get cancelled, right? And we have to get comfortable within ourselves that we don't need to talk about everything, or comment about everything, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I forgot what I was going to say. Don't talk about everything. Well, it's just the rise of social media. It's a double-edged sword of social media and the internet. Before you could get away with saying actually maybe crazier things. But now, even if what you say is said with good intentions, well, we've already established in society that intentions don't matter anymore, right? It's the impact that was caused. It's the outcome that you said, that, by the way, is judged by whatever gatekeepers nowadays, whether they're white gatekeepers or they're Black gatekeepers. For example, we spoke briefly again yesterday about Tim Scott, that's his name. Mm-hmm. So his speech, I watched it in its entirety, and it just touched me in just so many different levels. It just touched me. And because he didn't say, or because he didn't speak the language of wokeness and oppression, then that warranted him to be called the most racial by white people. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it just baffled me that the same white people that are telling me, or telling people that, like me, that white people don't see that my life matters, were the ones like racially abusing this man and not appreciating the intelligence that you may disagree. I'm trying to make this point with people. You can disagree with people. That's not a problem. But what is with this obsession with finding something about them to attack? Like something personal, which the first one is their race, if they're Black, whether it's by a white person or white liberal or whatever they call them, or a Black woke, let's call them woke people. And it's really, really sad. I think that's the biggest, disappointments I'm finding with the whole discourse of trying to engage with people. Like, for example, there's a man I listen to sometimes called Umar Johnson. I don't know if you heard of him. Mm-mm. I don't agree with anything he says. I don't agree with the mindset he pushes in the Black community. I just don't agree. But let me tell you something, that man is intelligent. I can see that he's intelligent. So though I may not like anything he says, I can recognize his intelligence because I'm intelligent, if that makes sense. So I can recognize intelligence. So it makes me think about these people who have nothing to say, nothing like nothing logical to say about what the other person said that they don't agree with, and it's straight away they're a coon, they're a black this, they're a black that, a token Negro, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
Mm.
You know.
Well, I think you're listening to understand and to formulate your own counter arguments. First of all, probably to check your own views and to, when I listen to or read people I disagree with, and I do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it gratuitously. In other words, when there are people I've seen around for a while and I know they have no value to add to the conversation, they're just a
Mm-hmm.
bomb thrower, I pay no
Mm-hmm.
attention. That doesn't even bother me. But there are some people, and some of them call themselves, centrists, or they'll say they're allies, or they describe themselves in various ways. And I know that they're very intelligent, but
Mm-hmm.
like you, I disagree with everything they say, but I do still read or listen because I'm
Exactly.
thinking of, first of all, I'm trying to understand what it is about what they're believing that they believe, like what's their perspective, because
Mm-hmm.
that's going to help me. For I truly believe I'm correct,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, and so I'm trying to formulate intelligent, rational arguments, counter arguments, to persuade them that they're mistaken, not
Mm-hmm.
that they're evil, but they're mistaken. Okay. That let's give most people the benefit of the doubt. As you say, assume benign intent. They really want to, I hate to use the term solve racism. You're never going to solve racism. You can't solve the heart of man. You can't, I mean, it's not solvable. There's good, there's bad, there's a mixture of virtues and vices in all of us. And it takes rational thought to, make choices every minute of every day that you're going to choose a virtuous path versus a not virtuous path. And
Mm-hmm.
so, this idea that it's out there or that it's something that someone externally can solve is ludicrous. I mean, whoever even believed that idea? You can't. It's an internal problem. Now, they'll give lip service to that when they say that you have to check your biases and you have to do these. That's not incorrect. That is
Mm-hmm.
true.
Mm-hmm.
People should check their biases. They should become culturally literate. They should be sensitive to other people's different experiences. This is I would agree with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But not for the purpose of not starting with the premise that they're trying to change themselves,
Yes.
not assuming there's bad things already there, just
Mm-hmm.
saying, if I work in a store and a white woman comes in and a black woman comes in, and I first go to help one or the other, it's one of those little thought experiments. If I in the woke world, if I go to help the black woman first, I might be accused of not wanting her to walk alone around the store, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
jumping on her to help her because of whatever. So, however, if I let her, walk around the store and look as much as she wants and not approach her and help the white person first, then it may be because I'm racist, right? That's how they approach is like, no matter what you choose, it's based on some bias. I would rather look inside myself and say, am I making my decisions about whom to help
Mm-hmm.
based on who needs help? In other words, is this person looking lost and confused and they can't find something? It doesn't matter what color they are. That's where I'm going, right?
Mm-hmm.
If this person is giving every signal that they want to be left alone, that's where I'm not going.
Yeah.
If you're providing good customer service, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but it should be a quick thing that you do. And I actually believe that because human beings can learn, yes, we can, that
Mm-hmm.
if you've done that a couple of times in a setting like that, you've done it. Like, you don't need to do it every single minute, every single interaction. That's way too
Yes.
stressful. Way
Yes.
too stressful. So,
Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, you mentioned why would someone think that someone can come and fix racism? Is that
yeah,
what you?
yeah, they're saying we got to
Well,
fix it.
well. Of course they think that because they think white people invented racism. They
Sorry.
feel you are the inventors of race. Do you not know that?
I mean, I do, but it's one of those that when I hear it said out loud, it,
Well,
it,
that's
it,
why
it,
I say
it
it,
yeah, yeah,
and
it
that's
makes it
why,
sound so much more
yeah,
ridiculous than letting it stay up in
exactly.
here.
And that's why I like to talk as plainly as possible, because that's in essence white supremacy is the we were talking about this yesterday, right? Fluffy language. I love listening to people because it's a lot of fluffy language. But I want to know, what are you actually saying? And that's what they are saying. Well, white people invented racism so white people can stop it if white people behave how I want white people to behave. That's
And I'm not at all racist in saying white people. White people. That's not racist.
It's not racist, and it will never be, because I do not have power. I did a live, and one of the someone listening then came on after and said, "Well, wow, sometimes it's one thing to hear from someone else or hear on the TV, but it's just so weird when I hear things myself." So I heard him say, well, she's lying, talking about me, because I mentioned that, like you said, racism is a vice. Things like racism, they fall under this category of virtues and vices, intangible concepts, right? So you can't ascribe that to one set of people. You just cannot. It's like saying all Black people are aggressive. Well, that's not true. All white people are exploitative. Well, that's not true. You can say, in history, this group has done this, or this group has done that, or this set has done this, but you cannot say then that means that the whole race, babies included, teens, it doesn't matter, they have a white skin, they're benefiting of white privilege, which, so funny, because some parts of Eastern Europe, that's white people don't seem to benefit very well from this white privilege anyway, right? So
or
I'm
Appalachia.
rambling, but pardon?
Or Appalachia in the United States.
Well, there you go. So he said, well, she's lying because Black people can't be racist because they don't have power. And then the example he gave was this, and it's a true one. He said, if a Black person is racist or is mean, he used to a white person, will that stop them from going to the bank and getting a loan? But if a white person is mean to a Black person, you tell me how the prospects of that Black person is. And I was like, wow, 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 wow. Really? These were his words. I'm not just fluffing it up just to fluff up. So can you see the mentality of some of us? So if a white person, even if let's not talk about mean, even if a white person, I've experienced racism. I'm sure you've experienced racism, even though then he said, well, that's not racism, that's prejudice. Whatever, call it whatever you want. It's like, for example, if I kill someone, if you don't want to call it a murder, I've taken someone's life. All right, let's just cut the ball.
It's a distinction without a difference. Semantic games. Let's just play word games all day. That's all they do. That's all they do is play word games.
So exactly. So how do you, even if you are racist, how does that really stop me from doing what I need to do in this life? How can I give someone that we say we are powerful, we say we are this. So let's use this power that we have to do something great then within our lives, and not use this power in such a negative way and to try and pull something invisible down and say, well, this is what's stopping me from doing what I need to do. And by the way, in many fields in society, we do excel, because I read an article yesterday, let's say in the sports and music arena, whatever, Black people do excel, and there's no lack of racism, or there's no absence of racism, shall I say? Is there?
I don't see anybody pushing for equity in the NBA.
There we go. So it just doesn't make sense. You have to think culturally, where are our interests? I was talking to my friend today, and she spends £50 a week, and no dollars, 30 something dollars
a lot of money,
taking her son to piano lessons. He's been going for, I think this is his 7th year. And I said, you have done well, because he doesn't like it, actually. He doesn't really, it's not his favorite thing, Black boy, yeah. And I said, you have done well. She said, it's not about what he wants, it's about what he needs to do. So if you change the culture and what is seen as cool in our culture, then we will get different results, because I guarantee you, he probably gets teased. He probably gets called, oh, wow, you do piano, you don't want, because he's really tall as well. Wow, you don't want to be a basketballer, you don't want to. So it's a lot of things in our culture that we need to talk about before we talk about how a white man is keeping us down. So.
Well, it sounds sort of trite, but
Mm-hmm.
I used to see when I was a kid, they would have, these little inspirational posters and things. And one said, living well is the best revenge.
Uh-huh.
And so
Yeah.
and I think revenge is a terrible impulse personally.
Mm-hmm.
I've read The Count of Monte Cristo, but, um,
Oh, the
okay.
film's amazing. The film's
Yeah.
amazing.
Revenge is, they're not wrong when they say bring a shovel and dig two graves, but
I
the,
love it.
but the impulse is terrible and I don't advocate it. However, let's say for the sake of conversation that part of this, because it's been argued that social justice is just another fancy term for revenge. And first of all, it's misplaced because people alive today didn't do these things. Even
Mm-hmm.
people alive today in the United States aren't the direct beneficiaries because the percentage of people in the United States who owned slaves
Mm-hmm.
was very, very small. It was pretty
Mm-hmm.
much not like 99% in the South. It
Mm-hmm.
ended in the North very early.
Mm-hmm.
And the white people in the South who didn't own slaves not only were not the beneficiary of slavery, they were hurt by it because their labor was worth nothing. Why would I
Mm-hmm.
pay
Mm-hmm.
someone when I can get labor for free?
Yeah.
So their wages were depressed, et cetera. They didn't want it any more than anybody else. They were propagandized to believe that it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
So who are you seeking revenge against? People who are escaping tyranny and torture and indentured servitude and,
Mm-hmm.
serfdom in other countries who
Mm-hmm.
happen to be white and now they're guilty too. It doesn't make any sense. But even so, see, I like to play the let's say you're right or let's go with that game because 90% of the time, what I find is I can still say it's wrong. So even if you found some kind of value in the impulse to exact revenge, the best revenge is for you to go on and prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
All you need is for the law to protect you. If the
Mm-hmm.
law protects you to the point where, and so this is where I'm challenged
Mm-hmm.
because when I see police brutality, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it's specific to race, by the way, it's not,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
when I see the images that are being fed to people, the
Mm-hmm.
narratives crafted for people,
Mm-hmm.
intellectually, I understand if that's the only information you have, that's all you've got,
Mm-hmm.
how it would be relatively easy to begin to believe the narrative
Mm-hmm.
that the law doesn't protect you. And so then if
Mm-hmm.
somebody like me comes along and says, as long as the law protects you equally, you have
Mm-hmm.
nothing to worry about. Just go on and live
Yeah.
and be free.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. And as a person focused on education,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it happens way before you hit the streets, way
Mm-hmm.
before you're old enough to be, worried about whether you're going to be pulled over driving a car. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it happens in kindergarten.
Yeah.
The first day that Black child goes to school and the school is not organized around doing everything possible to turn out a literate,
Mm-hmm.
numerate individual.
Yeah.
It's already over. So the equality under the law is, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that if you're already going to go down a path where your interactions with the law are going to be higher in number, where you might be
Mm-hmm.
living in a neighborhood that is full of crime and so forth. And that's because of the educational component. So I do intellectually understand their feelings
Mm-hmm.
around it,
Mm-hmm.
but my argument doesn't change. The best way to be free is to just be free. Go
Yeah.
use your freedom that you have. And when you find that someone is actually trampling on that,
Mm-hmm.
and you have evidence for that's why they resist, I do not know. If you genuinely believe your civil rights are being violated, they pulled you over for no good reason, all the more reason to be calm and cool and go to the station and get a
Mm-hmm.
lawyer and
Mm-hmm.
sue them. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just go all the way with it. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to it's going to be a lot easier, in my personal opinion, especially with body cams these days, to prove that they violated your rights when you're calm and cool
Mm-hmm.
and polite.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you resist, there'll be people coming out of the woodwork to say, what did you expect?
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't a good answer always either. It's unique to each situation. But that's always my answer. It's you actually legally are free. There
Mm-hmm.
is no systemic thing
Mm-hmm.
literally holding you back. It's these
Mm-hmm.
perceptions
Mm-hmm.
that are holding you back.
Exactly. Right. My phone was charging. I don't know if I can flip this because I'm looking the other way and
Okay,
I can.
Go ahead. See what
Wait,
happens. There you go.
is it better?
Yeah.
Oh, now I can see. Now I can go all
Yeah.
out.
That's fine.
Is the
Okay.
volume okay still? All right.
Yeah, it's fine. Let's see if
Okay.
this view is any better. Is this better? I think it's, well, that cuts me
Okay.
off. So it's fine.
Okay. It's okay.
All right. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the thing is, the first place, and this is my main purpose. I'm trying to, not just for Black people, but for anyone who will listen. The first place you need to be free, even before being legally free, is within yourself.
Yes.
You
So
need
true.
to be free within yourself. Um, I was saying even about this thing called safe spaces. The first safe space should be within you. I've never needed safe spaces because my safest place is within myself. That's where all the decisions are made about my life. So anything about policies and systems, it's all secondary. It's all an addition. It's not the thing that decides where I go next. And unfortunately, a lot of things I'm hearing is, well, if that changes, more Black people will do this. If that changes, less Black people will do this. But no, no. What within yourself is where is the decider of your actions, and not, well, if that happens, then I can decide to do this. Why? So we're relying too much on external things, and we're not, when I say we, it's anyone that keeps, women that blame men for not being in certain places, and Black people that blame white people, gay people that blame the straight white man, and just, these weird power dynamics now that, have been constructed in society, and people are not realizing that they are being played when they listen to these narratives. Okay, you're seeing a lot of, in the media, you're seeing a lot of, let's say, white police officer shoot, because that's what's being thrown in our faces now, shoot Black police officers. But really, and this is why I like some conservatives that were from the hood, if I can say, because they ask the same question, but what are you seeing in your neighborhoods? Is that what you're really seeing? Or, for example, in this case, in terms of killing, or do you see more people that look like you killing people that look like you? So, see, don't stop living your life based on perceptions. What is your real reality? Oh, well, I know that Black people get treated badly in this sector, but what is your own genuine experience? Because if you haven't had that, then stop living off the experiences of others, because that's actually stopping you, right?
Do, yes, but why do you think this has been a question that I've had for so long? If I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I can sort of attempt to put myself as myself into this situation.
Mhm.
And when I do that and I put myself on the receiving end of some of the things that get said about Black people by people who claim to want to help,
Yes.
okay,
Mhm.
I'm hearing it and I'm saying, how are people not massively insulted? If these things were being said about people that looked like me, or that I felt like I identified with the people they were talking about, I would be so insulted. I get insulted as a woman when people insist that as a woman I'm held back by choices I've made, or by things preferences that I have, or that my daughters are, or that I'm perpetuating some kind of problem by not actively telling them men are terrible people or something. And it insults me. It's
Mhm.
kind of like, do you really think I'm so narrow-minded and shallow that
Yeah.
I can't have a conversation with my children about
Mhm.
personal boundaries and about what is appropriate treatment and what is not appropriate treatment, regardless of who's doing it, whether they're male or female or anything else? That it's just insulting. It's assuming that I'm a thoughtless, shallow person with no agency at all. I'm not very smart. It
Yeah.
just it makes so many assumptions about individual people when you lump someone in a group, because the second you lump somebody in a group and then say these people will, or these people can't, or these people won't, you have to, almost by definition, lower everyone in it
Yes.
to the absolute lowest common denominator that you could imagine and legitimately get away with citing without everybody going, what?
Yes.
And yet people don't say, maybe an individual at home goes, well, that's not me, so whatever. But how are they not frustrated for their children or their friends or their relatives? Like, I don't get it.
It's collectivism, because when I see those narratives, I don't immediately, even though people think I do, I don't say that's not me. I think, could that be me? George Floyd being killed, that was the first and most questions I was being asked. Well, that could be you, but why? How? Just because we have the same skin color? Even geographically, I'm not where he is. We don't even have guns here. So why are you telling me that I could be him or he could whatever? It is an insult to me. And I'm not even saying it to put him down. That's the problem. I'm not. But we are two different human beings, two different lifestyles, two different, so to answer your question, the reason they don't get offended is because they sit at home, and no matter who he is, that could be me. That could be me. A woman didn't get a job. That could be me. Sorry, a black woman didn't get a job. Well, that could be me. But why? It can't be me because I studied. I'm a go-getter, right? And by the way, so are many of these women. I have an entrepreneurial spirit. So if I hear 40% of black women are on him, that can't be. I'm not in that 40%. So why are they? And that's why I hate statistics, because it doesn't make people actually think about other things. It's 40%, and then they think, oh, that's a high number. But what are the real reasons why? And 40% of whom? Do you know many times they sampled one demographic in one city, right?
Yep.
Because that's what they do here. That's what I found out that they do here in the UK with Stop and Search. Because I like to read. I don't read statistics. I like to read how they came to that conclusion. And with Stop and Search, they said black people are 50% more likely to get stopped by white people. They sampled one city, the metropolitan city of London, where many of black people, in terms of concentration, that's where a lot of black people are as well.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of high crime rates are for any demographic.
Well, they also don't look at not just the total picture, but they selectively sample statistics and don't ask questions like what else could be causing this. So I'll give you an example from education that recently came to my attention. I always knew instinctively that there was some dirty dealing going on, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And somebody brought it to my attention that in New York City, where, as you can imagine, there's always been a fairly high concentration of African Americans. There are a few competitive high schools that you have to take a test to get into, even though they're public high schools, because they're extremely advanced. And and it's become a big boogeyman, so to speak, that there is this test because they look at the statistic of what percentage of the student body is African American. And over the years, it's been falling. And so they blame the test. It's the test. We have to get rid of the test. The test is at fault. It's racist. See, because the outcome is fewer black students. Therefore, the test that you get used to get in must be racist. Oh, many Asian students are getting in, so it's favoring the Asian students. It's racist. Now, guess what? Oh, what else has gone on in the last several years? Diversity programs at very prestigious elite prep schools, where the private schools, okay, that also have extremely deep pockets, and they have donors and boards of trustees that are very eager to improve the diversity of their student body. So they're giving full scholarships and recruiting the black children out of the programs in New York, or the programs that used to exist, because guess what? They got rid of them after they also said that the gifted programs didn't have enough black students. They got rid of them, hurting the few black students that were using them. But they would go out and recruit the gifted black students out of these programs and give them full scholarships to go to prep schools. So they didn't even bother taking the test. They didn't look at the statistic of how many are even inclined to take the test. Where are they now? If they were in 8th grade and they were getting straight A's in 8th grade, they didn't just vaporize Where did they go? They went to elite private schools. They're not staying in the public schools. So it's actually just taking the population and moving it to a different place. They still exist. And guess what? They're getting better educations even than the Asian kids. What they're also not looking at all is they're not looking at the fact that the schools in the Asian neighborhoods where they're predominantly Asian, the population has increased like tenfold in the same time period. Their public schools are underfunded and in terrible shape. So for these families, the test, it's like, we've got to get our kid into that school because that's the only way they're going to get a decent high school education. So they put all their effort and all their energy behind taking that test and getting to that school. So their entire focus is different than the Black family goes, we need that scholarship to Andover, you know? So they don't even look any deeper than, the numbers, it's racism.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. And sorry, these are annoying me. Test, it's so funny, this conversation with Tess being racist. It's just always hilarious to me because I'll mention Umar Johnson again. I don't care because that's what actually made me start listening to him, because one of the first things he said was the tests are systematically rigged, and the conversation happens here. The conversation happens here as well. That is rigged against Black people. But what I found that he took to the next level is he said, especially with English, that there are many words that Black people are not familiar with, and it's unfair to us. And so my first pushback was, well, many of these Asian kids do not speak English very well. That's not even in a horrible way, and that's a compliment, because you can't use that as an excuse. And they get one of the highest grades and go on to do exceptionally well in whatever they do, because they learn how to pass the test. They learn what's needed to get to where they need to get to. Now, what word did he say? Elated. So he said, for example, because the interviewer said, can you give me, and that's why I love these kind of interviews, because that's how I am. It's very easy. Well, it's systematically rigged, because give me one word, give me an example. And the word he chose was elated. Elated. And he said, because when a Black, I'm not paraphrasing, I've said his name, you look him up. I don't paraphrase people I say what people say. And he said, well, when a Black child's at home, the mom's not using elated, the mom's using I'm happy, or okay. But
I'm going, when's the last time I used the word elated? I'm pretty sure. I don't walk around the house going, I'm elated to see you.
And that's not the point. Do you know how I succeeded in my school? I read.
Yes, that's how I know that word. It's not because I use it. I read it.
You read it. So what that is a testament of is that instead of our children being consumed in video games, I know all races do, but I'm talking about them saying, because people say that to me, well, white kids do that and spend time in games, Asian, but we are the only ones that say that something is against us, but we don't look at our habits. There's nothing against us when you're talking about, let's talk about specifically these tests. If you spend time encouraging your children to read more, not to read, look, it's easy to get your child to read, but to value, to see the value in these things, then I guarantee you that your child will fare much better. You know, I did theology of religion in secondary school because I passed all my, I don't know what you guys call it there, but we call it GCSEs. It's like the test you take in secondary school to go to the next level. Okay. I passed all mine 1 year before. So you're meant to take it in the 11th year. I passed everything in the 10th year. So they basically didn't know what to teach me in my 11th year. So they gave me options and they said, well, we need to give you a college course, choose. And I chose philosophy of religion. I did philosophy of religion in secondary school. And there was it was a secondary school. It was a college course. There was no teacher available to teach me that lesson, that course. Do you know what I did? I never forget. I self-taught. Everybody thought I was crazy. I self-taught, and I said to I got close to one of the teachers and I said, I need some kind of help. I know this is not but I need something. And I would stay 1 hour after school. I would do my normal lessons, even though it was a repeat. And I would stay 1 hour after school with him learning. And I got an A, the highest. So
Where did you get your education? Were you already in the UK at this time?
yeah, yeah, I was here. I was here. So
So you were in
it's a
a supposedly white supremacist country too.
I was in a white supremacist. I am in a white supremacist country, right? That's what they all say. And so, what is the difference then between me and other people? It's so easy to say, "Oh well, there's no one to." I had all the excuses, and I have all the excuses. But excuses don't make people who, even the great people, they didn't get there by, "Oh, I can't." They got there from what they couldn't do, whether they're white, they're black, disabled, whatever. They broke odds that people within their demographic couldn't break. And that's why I hate this: a black man has to work as twice as a white man. Anyone to be great has to work twice, thrice, 4 times as hard as the next person to them. So
Right.
it's just so
The
sad.
expectation, the thing that I don't understand, and it seems to fly in the face of the argument that, well, white people never have to think about their race. They don't have to worry about things because they're white. Eddie Murphy did a skit back, I think, in the late 80s about this on Saturday Night Live where he put on whiteface and he pretended to go into places and everyone's like, here, take it for free. You just can have it. Oh yeah, whatever. So it sort of amplifying how silly that was, that, just having white skin would, magically make your life better. But I think you're frozen. Can you hear me? Ada, are you there? Oh, reconnecting. I'm gonna wait for her. Feel free to throw up any questions, y'all. We will get to them. I just want to wait for her to come back before I say what I'm going to say because I want her to respond to it. Let's see. You lost me. Uh-oh. Okay. Hi, Carl. Let's see. Let's see if she can click the link again. Let's see. Kick that out. Okay. Try to join again because I think I had to close your window for you to join again. So try, if you're still watching, try to click that link again and see if it puts you back in. Isn't she awesome, you guys? I hope you can hear me. But I just love talking to her. I always learn something every conversation. What is going on? Okay. Everybody's chilling. Everybody at work right now? Or is Friday already begun? I don't know what's going on. Ah, here she is. Okay.
Sorry.
You back?
Don't know what happened.
No. That's all right. I'm trying to get back in my train of thought. So I think I was talking about how people say, they just give you stuff,
Yes,
because you're
Eddie
white, you don't have to,
Murphy. Yes.
and you don't have to worry about things. Well, what's interesting is I don't see people looking at the actual achievements of actual white people or actual what, in other words, if the population is the majority and it's this assumption that everybody's, successful, and we don't even have a definition of success. And if you look around, the majority of people in the United States anyway, who have some kind of welfare help are white. Still, the majority of people in prisons are white. It's they'll say, well, it's disproportionate relative to the total population, but that's not my point. That may be true, and that maybe there are other things we can talk about, but if you're going to look at somehow like, I don't have to think about being white. No, but I still have to think about competition. I still have to think about all the same things any other human being has to think about when, competing for jobs, competing for resources, competing for all the things that, this assumption that life is supposed to be easy, stress-free, poverty-free. And the natural state of humans is poverty. If you were dropped by parachute in the middle of the desert, the jungle, the woods, the whatever, with nothing, you are impoverished. So we come into this world with nothing. And it's up to your parents and, people that you know and who love you and have a stake in you, care about you, to take care of you. You're literally helpless. You don't have it. You're not rich. Even a kid born to rich parents is not rich. If they left them by the side of the road, they're poor, right? Mm-hmm. So the natural state of humans of all races is poverty. And the only thing that gets you out of that is your own effort. The only thing that takes you from wherever you start, which is really the only people you could conceivably blame, might be parents. That's it. If you were going to, and even they, now you got to go back to their parents and so on. So blame is not really constructive. You're starting where you are. And the only way you're going to get to the next level up is effort. If someone comes along and gives you something, if it's not truly constructive, it's just like, here's a sandwich, here's some money. Mm-hmm. That's not really going to help you. So, I have those same worries, and they exist every day of my life, like every other human. It's a tiny percentage of the world's population, smaller than 1%, that doesn't wake up every day and say, what am I going to do? How am I going to eat? How am I going to keep the lights on? We're talking teeny tiny.
Yes,
so,
but they have other worries, and that's the point.
Yes.
So what are you trying to do? What are you trying to get to? And that's what you asked. And I ask that question all the time. Well, what is the definition of success?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We were fortunate enough to be blessed with a super chat from my friend in Australia. Nice. Is CRT really about race, or is it about destroying respect for reason, individualism, and everything that protects us from collectivism and dictatorship? What's your take?
Yes, about the individualism part for a Black woman, 100%. It's just taken away my individuality. It's taken away my journey, right? Whatever I say now is measured against how Black it is or how Black it isn't, or whether it fits that narrative of me being oppressed. And if it doesn't, then I am in denial. That's what critical race theory has. It's literally, if I'm one of those over the top, over emotional, I would say it's literally ruined my life, because people can't relate to me anymore just as me. They relate to me as I wonder what all the racism she's faced. But I don't think about that. I don't. But me saying that, Deb, makes me a horrible Black human being. The fact that I say that I don't think about all the racism I've faced and all the racism I will face and how much white people block me and this and that and the other, I'm not exaggerating, that makes me a self-hating Black woman. So there's no individual aspects. If I'm successful, well, I'm the exception, as I got told to my face. Well, you're the exception. Actually, I'm not. If you open your eyes and pay attention, I'm actually not, right? So, and then if I haven't made it, then you see, I told you, it's the white man, it's the system, it's the institution, it's supremacy. So I can't win. If I'm successful, I'm something, if I'm not, so I think it's really just taken us backwards, really.
That to me, that's heartbreaking, because you're a grown woman and you can process this information and think about it and still arrive at the conclusion that it has ruined your life. But now I'm thinking of a little 6 or 7-year-old child. And I'm thinking of a 6 or 7-year-old child who has, before going into school, been at the playground or just at the mall or walking on the street or on the beach or any other place. And they saw another little 6-year-old kid who was white, and they played and they danced and they did their thing. And then they went to school. And that was the first somebody maybe told them, oh, you're Black. and this is what this means, and this is what you should be feeling, or this is what you should be angry, and all of these thoughts. And of course, they don't put it quite like that. They don't say you should, but they do say, you're a victim and all these kinds of things. And immediately before you have the capacity for reason, your brain literally isn't developed well enough. You are put in a box and forever made to feel like you have a wall between you and that same little kid that you played with on the beach or in the street. And that little kid who played is now afraid to speak to you, afraid to offend you, afraid, doesn't know how to speak with you. And we're going back, like you said, backwards. We're going backwards decades. I actually think that people related to each other better as individuals, individual to individual, when you had more systemic and institutionalized racism, where it was like, right, so that the racists who were really racist were, who they were. There they are. I'm not one. Hi, how are you? And it was a lot easier to, not have that feeling, because all you had to do right away was just say hi, stick out your hand and say hi, nice to meet you. And that person would immediately know, oh, you're not one of them. You actually want to shake my hand, right? Now you're fraught with like, oh, you just want to shake my hand as your token Black person. Oh, you don't want to shake my hand because I'm Black. And it's like,
yes. That's what I mean, that nothing is genuine anymore. Someone messaged me the other day and they said they're always second guessing, and they're always being, because she's a white lady, they are always being second guessed. So why is she talking to me? I hate this word token. She's a token. She wants a token Black friend. No, she just wants a friend. She just wants a friend. And if you're going to be an asshole, then that's why she's not your friend, and not because you're Black. Right. So it's just like,
but we should want to have diversity, and we should definitely, be culturally sensitive and want a greater diversity in our schools and our businesses and ever, but don't be friends with each other, because that's not genuine. You can't have authentic relationships with people who are not the same race as you, because there will always be this wall of white supremacy. So, but definitely let's all work together, and we should have the Crayola crayon box of colors that are so different we can't interact authentically. It makes no sense.
And, the children, it's good you mentioned it. They are the targets. Someone said that as young as 4 years old, they already understand the dynamics at play in terms of race. So they can, a white child can see a Black man and say, oh gosh, the things I listen to.
Okay. Well, first of all, this is really like a thing that gets to me. Is Ibram X. Kendi, who wrote that book of How to Be an Anti-Racist, he took a piece of research that was done, and I don't know why it was done. I don't think it was done with good intentions, because they did the experiment all wrong. They only looked at white children, first of all. And all the research he cites is based on white children, irony of ironies. And they took them when they were, I believe, less than 2 years old. It might've been like 6 months, some crazy young age. And they were looking at their eye movements and their focusing of their eyes. And what they found was that after a certain age, their ability to recognize their caregivers or hone in on faces was faster with caregivers of the same race. Now, they never said that, they started slow and got really, it's just they all start at the same level, and they just would get a little faster when it's a caregiver of the same race. Well, doesn't this stand to reason? You're literally a helpless creature. When you see caregiver, you're still, first of all, reacting mostly by amygdala. I mean, you don't have conscious thoughts. You don't have ideas. Why? Because you don't have language. You can't have an idea if you don't have words. Okay. You have maybe feelings of hunger, thirst. It's pretty primitive. Okay. And so, they're reacting to this. And he said, oh, babies recognize race, and they begin to have racist thoughts, he said, as early as 2. No, they don't. You cannot have, and he said ideas. You cannot have ideas about a construct, a social construct, which is what race is, when you're 2. You can barely have it when you're 17. You cannot have rational ideas. You can have ideas, but they're implanted. They're told to you. Your ideas about race you didn't come by organically, even at 17 years of age, because your prefrontal cortex is not done forming. So until you can fully grasp all of this, you're not having rational thoughts. So what we're telling kids is what they know about race is what we're telling them. And to use that piece of research to say that children understand these constructs is a lie. Here's what they do understand. They understand body language. They understand they can pick up on, unless they're not neurotypical. If they're neurodiverse, they might be less capable, but they pick up on who's looking at me, who's making eye contact, who has open body language, who is welcoming and willing to give me a hug, who is speaking to me in a pitch that is friendly. This is what they understand when they're babies and toddlers. So when we start to see a child as a Black child or a white child, the things that are immediately going to change are our tone of voice, our body language, how willing we are to go near them physically, and so on. And that's what they're picking up. They don't know why. They don't know why. The only way they know why is when someone tells them, oh, that's because you're Black or that's because you're white. Now they're forming the connection because an adult told them, not because they're going, it's racism. This is crazy talk.
And people buy it. It's crazy, but people buy it. People clap hands and say, oh, thank you for educating me. And they're completely, that's why I hate this, trust the science, trust this, because he's going to use the science, right? To back up a ludicrous, like just common sense just tells you that is completely false.
Spend 5 minutes with a toddler and then look at what he says and tell me that has any basis in reality. It's utterly ridiculous. And I just don't understand why more people of science, people who do study child development, and they are increasingly pushing back, but why isn't it a crescendo? Why aren't there just thousands of voices saying, Dr. Kendi, that's insane. There's no basis for that in reality. And the only conclusion I've come to, and tell me what you think about this, is that as human beings in sort of Western modern society or whatever, our greatest fear is what other people think of us, is having other people think ill of us. Like that is worse than death. Like literally, like we would rather have somebody think well of us and die than have them call us racist and live.
Yeah. That's why I say to people, especially white people, what the hell are you so afraid of when it comes to speaking out? I'm not telling everyone, white person, to speak out. No, please. I'm talking about the kinds that message me and say, I just want to. And when I say speak out, I don't mean open an Instagram account and start talking. Even within your circle, even within your worlds, they are being talked to. Their family
lectured,
members and their friends
scolded,
have no problem saying their opinion, but they feel they can't say their opinion, and because, well, then they'll think I'm a racist. So freaking what? Are you? Because that's the only time you should be bothered, if you are. Right. But if you know in yourself that you are not, then what the hell? I know who I am. People tell me all the time, I'm just looking for a white man. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I always say, well, I've got one, but he's half. I don't know if that counts.
And I wonder about the children. I wonder about the children who are biracial. How confusing it must be. And it's just I really I don't know. I'm on this mission, and it's probably a fool's errand, but I'm on this mission to just wake more people up to not to agree with me, but to ask more questions. So that when they're in a situation and somebody says something and it doesn't make sense, especially if they tell you about yourself, it is abuse, absolutely abusive for another person to tell you what you feel and what you think.
Yeah.
Okay. That nobody has permission in your life to do that. Nobody.
All the right to.
No, they don't. It is absolutely abusive. And when you do it to a child, it is doubly so, because now it is really bad. I think it should be a crime personally. But if you're in a workplace, if you're in a classroom, I don't care how old you are, how young, whatever, and somebody says, oh, you feel this way because, or you're lying because your skin is this. And when people start to violate your most sacred boundary, which is this, we need to teach our kids to just say, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. Oh, disappeared again. It is predatory. It is absolutely predatory. And she went away again. Hopefully she'll come back. What is this, Dominic? What did you say? Cambridge Analytica brags they can control the emotions and actions of 2/3 of America. And they are correct, tragically. You know who else does that? I know from a little bit of inside scoop from years ago when my ex-husband worked for a company that, here we go, that worked for them as Pfizer. They brag about that too. So anyway, sorry. So we need to teach our children about boundaries, how to establish them, and how to defend them. And most important, what consequences there should be for people who violate them. And there should be consequences. You can't hold people accountable for violating your boundaries if there are no consequences for doing so. And so when somebody gaslights you and tells you, you feel this, can you hear me? Ada, you're frozen. Oh, there we go again. When somebody tells you that, you know, you are this or you are that, people need to be able to say, not only is that not correct, but if you persist in doing this, we're going to have a problem. And you need to have a plan for what that is. So if you're in a workplace, that's hostile workplace. You need to start documenting it and have there be a consequence for the people who are creating a hostile workplace for you. If you're in a school or your child is going through this, you need to start documenting it and contemplate civil rights lawsuit. I mean, these things.
My Wi-Fi doesn't want me to win.
I was just saying that there ought to be some people need to start learning about their rights, and they need to start learning about how to defend their boundaries in a very literal sense. So like you said, speaking out doesn't have to be I go on YouTube or I have an Instagram account or a blog or anything. It's just in your day-to-day interactions when you could be having a passing conversation with somebody, even a friend, where the consequences are not going to be as severe. But if somebody says, oh, well, you know, that's your white fragility or you're feeling this, you have to realize that you have a right to say, why do you say that? Explain to me specifically how you know how I feel inside, because I would never do that to you. If it's your friend, you might say, I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't tell you how you feel or why you feel some way because I'm not you. So I don't have a right to do that, nor do I have the knowledge to do that. So neither do you. Please don't do that. It's going to hurt our friendship. If it's a coworker, you take it up a notch and say, I'm going to have to ask you to stop telling me about myself because I'm me and you're not. And that's a boundary I take very seriously. You need to start speaking. You can be civil, you can be polite, but you have to defend your boundaries, because if you give people an inch in this regard, as Justice mentioned in the comments, it's predatory. And people can smell blood in the water. And the more power they have over you, the more aggressive they'll get in ways that will damage your life. And this is true whether you're white or black. So if it's you and it's a boss or somebody saying to you, you know, you better not say this, or you just feel that way because you've been tokenized or whatever, they're violating your boundaries. We can't allow people to do this to us. It is verbal abuse. And I really want to get that message out that we can't be so afraid of how abusers feel about us. That's putting us on the same plane as like an abused spouse in a romantic relationship. Who wants to be there, right? We would watch a movie, let's say, about somebody getting beaten up or even verbally abused, and we would immediately say, that's terrible. You need to get out of that situation. Why do they stay? Why do they put up with it? Well, because they allowed it when it was small, and then it got a little worse. And they said, well, I don't want to get in a fight. I don't want there to be a problem. I need to keep this or that going in my life. And then it ramped up and up and up and up and up until now you're getting punched. Okay. Well, it's the same thing in culture. It's the same thing. If you give people an inch when it comes to your boundaries, it's going to end up with broken windows and cities on fire.
Yeah. I think that's spot on. That's actually an amazing analogy. I think it's the perfect one, really, about what's going on now.
So, but well, we've been talking for a little over an hour. Did you have anything you want to like say to wrap it up with a bow about your thoughts this week? I mean, we're going to try to do these again, like maybe monthly, right? Hopefully, but
I'll be more prepared. Okay.
But what, you know, just in terms of just current, I love what you said about how this is affecting you. I really think that's powerful. And I hope if people heard nothing else today, they heard that the people ostensibly lining up and praising themselves for helping Black people. I am so capital V virtuous. I am helping fight racism, are hurting people like Ada. That you heard what she said. I mean, everybody heard what you said. It's ruining your life. You would just want the freedom to live your life and interact with people without thinking about power dynamics. I mean, you're capable. You're a capable, independent, intelligent woman. You're perfectly capable of sticking up for yourself if someone does something truly overtly racist. Let's give people a little bit of credit that they can say, well, I'm not going to have anything to do with that person anymore. Moving on.
I don't need anyone to speak for me. And, I don't want to throw shade, as they say, to maybe people that genuinely feel they need people as well. That's not maybe what I'm saying, but this general Black people are fatigued, Black people are this and that and burdened. Just stop it. It doesn't help us, you know. Unfortunately, many are hearing that already from their parents, from aunties, uncles, family members. I never heard that, and that's why I'm success. I was successful, and I'm continuing to succeed in a lot of things that my hands touch, because my parents taught me to face things at face value without expecting racism. I don't go into situations expecting what racist thing could happen to me today, and that means that I face things like rationally. Like you said, we use that word a lot today. Just clearly, I weigh out what actually happened, and my default is not because of my skin color. And then when it's not because of my skin color, do you know what happens? I develop, I grow, I change, I do better, because I can change and develop those things. I can't develop or change my skin color. I will always be like this. So when the default for people is their skin color, then they're stuck. They can't go in, they can't go higher. You know, they can't transcend that. And that's why they're still not getting the jobs, let's say, because they're not improving from the last interview that they perhaps didn't succeed on, because that was because the white man was racist.
You
But
know,
mm-hmm.
through all of this, I have to really be grateful to my dad and my grandfather. There are lessons I was taught as a child that I would like to teach to every child. And one of them was a story my dad told me. It was called The Man with the Jack story.
Mm-hmm.
And he would tell me often, he would say, don't be the man with the jack. Don't be the man with the jack. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there was a man one night and he's driving on the road very late. It's, like 1 a.m. He's coming back from a business trip and he's on a rural road. There are no houses, gas stations, anything. And his tire goes flat. So he gets out, he looks in the trunk, the jack's not there. He can't change his tire. Sees a house in the distance. He decides, I'm going to go to that house and ask for help because it's cold and I got to get home. And he's walking. And on his walk to the house, he thinks, it's really late. They're not going to want to help me. Why are they going to want to help me? I mean, they don't know me. I'm a stranger. What if they come in the door with a gun and they shoot me? Oh my God. You know what? They're probably not going to give me the jack. And then I'm going to be stuck out here all alone in the freezing cold. What if I freeze to death? I'm not going to get home. I'm going to be late for work tomorrow. Then I'm going to lose my job. And his mind is going through all these things as he's walking. He starts walking faster. And he's getting angrier. And he gets to the door and he pounds on the door. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. He's pounding on the door. And the bleary-eyed farmer comes to the door. He's like, hello? And he goes, take your stupid jack and shove it.
Oh my God.
And I'm sure you get the moral of the story is that if you work yourself into a lather about what's going to happen, you're not only borrowing trouble, but you're inventing a future that doesn't even exist, that you have no control over. By the way, if it goes that way, you have no control over it. So, and we're teaching children to do this. It's called cognitive distortion. And we're literally teaching them to take unreality and start to see it like a movie of reality in their head to the point where they act on it. And they're projecting onto other people. And so what happens? Do I want to hire you when you come for the job with an attitude? When you show up at the door like you're probably not going to hire me, but hire me, If you walk in with the attitude of like, I should be hired because I'm good at this job and I have every expectation that you will consider me as seriously as any other candidate, guess what? You have a better than average chance of getting the job. In fact, asking for the job and saying, I really want this job. I think I'll do a very good job for you. And I want to, so please hire me, has been shown to be a pretty high indicator of whether people get a job. So it's not what your name is or what it sounds like or what your hair looks like or how you dress. It's your attitude. But when I say things like that to people, and by the way, this goes for everyone, it's not, I'm not speaking to Black people, because I've seen plenty of people of all races have a negative attitude. When I say things like this as an example of maybe we should be teaching children how to stop projecting into the future things that aren't there, because that's cognitive distortion. People say, well, now you're scolding people. You're white splaining or this, or that. And I'm like, I'm just really trying to give you some time-tested, good advice that was given to me, because even I, as a child, as a teenager, teenagers are very prone to this, by the way. All teenagers are prone to this. I would do that. I would say, well, you're probably not going to want to talk to me and this is not going to happen, whatever. And he'd say, don't be the man with the jacket. And that was the end of the conversation. Once I knew the story and it would trigger it again, I'd be like, you're right. You're right. I had to be reminded half a dozen times, but it stuck eventually and it really works.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it doesn't take away, when biases do arise, and let's say when specific companies, are unfortunately still make decisions, that are racist. But I think what we're saying is that the default is not racism. I think that's really what I want to scream out. The default is not racism. If every negative thing that happens to a Black person is not racism. I mean, I don't know why I need to say this, but I feel like I need to keep saying it. A negative outcome does not mean racism when it's a Black person. It is just as simple as that. So I think, in terms of mentioning the teenager, teenagers have a lot of insecurities. And I feel that's, I say out loud, I say in public, it's not a secret that I say this. I think many Black people, there are insecurities that, that they need to talk about within their culture, legitimate or not. I think, you mentioned like the hair and things like that. I think there's a lot of things that they need to deal with and see that, stop listening to what your friends say or what your mom says. I know it sounds so, I think silly, but it's like they have a perception of what people think about them that I don't think is necessarily always true. They could have had a specific instance, a specific comment, but that doesn't mean that's how, I'll be specific, that's how white people see you or think of you. And why I'm saying that is because, for example, I watched a Black woman yesterday recite a poem, and the poem was just basically about a white woman bumping into her without saying, excuse me. So then her whole poem was that all white women don't want Black women, don't respect the space of Black women. I don't understand that, because white women have bumped into me, Black women have bumped into me. So what do these things mean? Oh, well, a white woman said something about my hair. A Black person has said something about my hair as well, actually. Black people, a white woman has said something, has mentioned, about my name. Oh, Ada, that's a different name. So have Black people. So what the hell is your point? Oh, they're literally not doing things because of comments. But if they actually double down and see it's not a white thing, a Black thing, we are in a multicultural society, by the way. So just going off tangent a bit, this thing of, I hate when white people can't say African people's names. Deb, there's some African people that can't say some African people's names.
No, it's true.
I say things like that for people to, it's not to say this is right or this is wrong. It's to make you just open your mind and think a bit and stop saying fluffy things. I'm going to start using fluffy things that don't actually mean much once you dissect what is being said that is meant to supposedly stop you.
Well, you could just back up and say, stop and think, period. Full stop. Actually stop emoting, stop reacting. That was another thing that my dad would say. He said, you only have control over one thing in this life, and that is your reaction to things. It's the only thing you have control over. Everything else is a crapshoot. That's it. You're just going to have to deal as you go through life. That's not to say that you can't act on the environment and be proactive, but you have even a limited measure of control of that. The choices of what you can be proactive about are limited by a variety of things that have nothing to do with other people being mean to you. I mean, and even if they do, you got to go around them, climb over them, all this kind of stuff. But you do have 100% control over your reaction, especially to how other people speak to you, look at you, talk to you, bump into you, hire you, don't hire you,
and
pull you over to arrest you, whatever it is.
Yeah, I just one quick point. I think people just have to. I'm going to talk about being secure in themselves. You mentioned something. Was it you that just said the best revenge is a quiet
living
life?
well. Living well is the best.
Living well. But I also want to say just that quiet confidence. Just being sure of who you are. That's what speaks volumes about your character. The amount of times I've heard throughout my life, you can't work there because they don't like Black people. I went to Germany. I remember 2015, I was having my yearly vacation. Oh gosh, I'm being so American now. My yearly holiday vacation. We don't say vacation in England.
Right. Holiday. Mini break, right?
Yeah. And it's just a very quick example, but why you should be secure in who you are and stop listening to, Black, white, whatever. And I remember there were two options I had. One was to go to Spain, which is the number one option for Britons. Yes, Spain. We all like to go to Spain with my friend to have a very girly, naughty holiday, shall I say. And then, for some reason, my mom said, "Oh, I want to go to Germany to see her brother lives there." So I was like, "Germany, Germany." And when I told people my dilemma, they said, "Do not go to Germany. They're racist." Don't. That's all I heard. That's all I heard. That's all I heard.
Not it's expensive. It's cold. You'd rather go to Spain and go to the beach. No.
Yeah. They don't like Black people. And the rebel I am, guess where I went?
Germany.
And I loved every set. It's literally until today the best holiday I had, to the point that I went the next year. That's the only country I've been twice. I don't like going to places twice. I like to explore. I went to Germany twice. So can you see what I mean? When people just listen, they don't think. But so I started, but why? What? How? That's not. Let me see for myself. And they limit themselves with experiences that they could have. I've had so much amazing experiences. I'm not even done yet because I don't listen to what people say and what the narrative wants to decide about constructions, and they don't like and you don't like and you won't be. No. And
you should see how people in the North. I mean, I grew up in New York City, and when you talk about the South, wasn't it very racist there? And I'm like, and then Chelsea Handler, that actress, dimwit person, I swear she must have sent a team out to find the most racist people in the most racist town in somewhere in Alabama or somewhere and I guarantee either that she paid people to say the things that they said. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some people that have these ideas, but then she puts it on, a little video out on social media, like, this is the South. And I'm just like, if you go, the point being, if you are looking for something, especially something negative, you're going to find it. You can always find the negative thing. And we're frozen again. This is downright comical. This is comical. All right. When she comes back, we'll have to wrap up because poor thing is having trouble with her connection. But yeah, that's I guess my message in this conversation and to everyone watching in general in my channel is please speak up. Okay. All right. So I think your phone is telling us we've been talking too long, so we need to stop talking.
Yeah. But you were
All right.
so inspiring. I feel so inspired, so pumped right now to go
Oh,
and
good.
save
Yay.
my communities. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you just keep being you. It's like I said, just keep being you. And that's your freedom. That's your life. They can't touch that. So I'm really sad to hear how you feel like it's affected you in this way. That's been my concern, especially for children. But you really have, every time I talk to you, I learn something. And
Mhm,
I think it's always good to have these exchanges of ideas, and maybe more people listen, more people see it, and they will themselves be brave.
mhm.
That's our message, guys, is just people talk about having courageous conversations. This is a courageous conversation. Telling somebody, no, I don't feel that way. I don't. That's a courageous conversation in 2021.
Right.
But you need to do it. You need to do it. Right?
Amazing.
All right. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day. And
Thank you. I'm so
everybody,
excited to
thanks for
be here.
coming.